right, and welcome to another edition of An Hour with Bob. Here we are, the first week of the year, I guess. No, it's the second week of the year, but our first show for 2022. The time marches on, folks, whether we like it or not. But I have to bring back one of my old favorites, one of the guests I've had on here. Probably he ranks in at least the top 5 with Gene Valicenti, Tony Petrarca, and this guy might be number 3. His name is Jim Hummel. You'll all know him from the Hummel Report. And before that, Channel 6, and before that, the Providence Journal. Jim Hummel, how you doing?
I'm almost as old as this set, Bob. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Can we shake hands?
I don't know.
No, wait, we might have to.
Have you been vaccinated?
I've been double vaxxed and boosted and everything that they told us to do.
Wow.
So, yep, and still wearing a mask. So.
Yep.
Crazy times we live in, huh?
Oh, my God. We thought it was all over with last year, right?
Yeah.
They said it was going to be done with. You know, Biden is guilty of doing what, I was thinking about this the other day, guilty of doing something that the Bush got criticized for when he said, it's over, you know, I wiped them out.
Yeah, for Trump, when Trump said that, yeah.
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 No, Biden.
With the mission accomplished.
Yeah,
he stood out there on the carrier.
On the aircraft carrier, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Biden virtually said the same type of thing last year. You know, we're all done. We got this thing beat, and it's not beat.
Well, I think that, clearly the science has changed, and they don't, nobody should have said the vaccines are going to solve it all. Seemed like that. Right. You would think somewhere somebody would have known variants. I mean, they've studied infectious diseases over the years, that somebody might have thought there might be something else that's going to slip around a mask or slip through a vaccine, and they just didn't. Even the governor, McKee, your friend, said to me at one of the press conferences, he said, we were ramping down right toward Thanksgiving. Right. I was thinking, we're going to ramp down.
But he's not guilty.
No, I don't.
It's not his fault because they're telling him that.
The scientists are telling him that, and I also think, you wonder why you can't get testing now. It's just, I think, across the United States, they were thinking, the companies don't want to have millions and millions of tests sitting on their shelves unnecessarily.
Right, because they don't last as a short.
Right, they were thinking it was going to go down, and it didn't. So
I
texted the governor. I said I could do with fewer vaccine site notices and a little bit more testing. Because we've all had scares at one point or another. I had a scare over the holidays. Fortunately, did not get COVID, but there was a day there where I really wanted to know. I had symptoms, and it was a Monday, and I looked at the state portal, and it said Sunday was the quickest that you could get it. So
From Monday.
So fortunately, I had my kids home, and they wound up going out and finding a couple of tests that you could buy at Walgreens. But I might have been faced.
How much are they? $20.
It's like $25 for 2 tests, which is really short money if you want to. Because we were leading up. My kids only get home for a couple of weeks every year now, and I was faced with my wife banished me to the basement until we got the negative test. I went nuts after about 15 hours. Well,
you have twins, a boy and a girl.
I do.
And they're what?
24.
24 years.
We're getting old because remember they came on the show when they were
5 years old. I remember the first time they come on here, they were 5.
Yeah.
And several times after, and at the Toys for Tots at the Walmart Mall.
We were laughing because my son, we went to a Paw Sox game once when they were, 7 or 8. It was for Father's Day. And so we had an intern at Channel 6 come over and say, and of course she wanted to get us on TV. Oh, Jim Hummel's here and whatever. And my daughter had gone with her cousins off to get some ice cream. And she goes up to my son and says, "Why is your dad so special?" And he froze. And we now we call it pulling a cam. He went, "Yep." He didn't know what to say.
Which is what a lot of people would do with a microphone.
Stick a face.
Yeah, of course.
I rely on that when I interview politicians.
Sometimes I know you
go like this.
Yeah.
But so my daughter the other day said she was referring to something, and she said, "Hey, so and so pulled a cam." Meaning they interviewed her, didn't know what was going on. And it was funny because he expected to get on television just because he was my son. And they wound up not using him. He really didn't say anything. No. And I said, "Cameron, it's what you say, not who you are." So it's a lesson for television.
Point well taken.
How have you been?
I'm here. I'm still alive. I'm still kicking.
Yeah?
Don't kick as well as I used to. But
You've got a big anniversary coming up next year.
Yeah, huh? I wish I could had somebody to organize a 30th anniversary. I was going to say wedding. 30th anniversary party.
Now look, let's not be Betty White here and prematurely celebrate, right? Everybody's saying,
Ouch.
oh, she's going to be
Ouch.
100, she's going to be 100.
Ouch.
And the Queen is about to 70 years. Don't say anything about the 30th until you get a
Oh,
little
you
bit
brought
closer.
it up, not me.
Well, just you've been talking to me about it off camera, saying, "Oh, the big 30th next year. Can you come on?" and whatever else.
Maybe.
But like the rest of us, you had to take a break during the pandemic,
Here with
not by choice.
No, exactly. And like you thinking that I was done.
I thought you were done.
Yep. But the cable, they wouldn't allow us in.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that, by the way, for 17 months. It kind of did make no sense to me. I mean, all you need to do is set the cameras up and I'll
Stay
bring a guest in. And
6 feet apart.
yeah, you can stay. My camera lady right there, Lindsay, she's, what, 20 feet away?
There she is.
Right.
We could have kept a yardstick between us.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, tape measure. I got a 25-footer.
Show the Department of Health exactly how we're distancing.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
But also in the interim, they moved the studio.
Right.
And moved from the Pawtucket.
Well, I appreciate you doing that because it's a little closer to my house. You did that just for me. right?
Exactly, exactly. Hey, did you see Senator
White House?
White House talking about Barrington?
Oh, how we're all going to be underwater?
You're going to be underwater.
Yeah, don't hold your breath about us being. They say, so I understand climate change, it goes up an inch, it goes. They made it sound like it's going to go up 9 feet in the next 12 years.
Yeah, something.
Oh,
like
we might have to build a dike around Barrington. They
Well,
have to
not
build
only
a
that,
dike around his office and keep him in.
Yeah. What about 114? He said 114. Part of it's going to be underwater.
Well, maybe everybody will get a whaler then, and then we'll just go from our house.
Yeah, there you go.
They had a picture of the Barrington Yacht Club, which is ironic because a lot of boats, right? And Channel 12 did this story, if you haven't seen it, on climate change, and that it's what do they called it losing ground, and they said most of it now.
And they had a lot of blue in Barrington.
Well, the beauty of where I live is, and we thought about this. I'm over in the Hampton Meadows section, and you have to go. So you go across. I'm not on the cove, but I'm across the street. We can see it from second floor.
That's called,
my neighbor.
That's called water view.
Well, and it means fewer taxes.
Right.
It's not waterfront.
And you're not in the floodplain, right?
No. So what the deal is, you walk across the street, and then you have to go down about 15 feet.
Oh, so
and when we bought the house in the late 90s, I thought, should I get flood insurance?
Right.
And we talked to people who had gone through the hurricane of '54. They had little houses
Hurricane
all
Carol.
along Carroll, and they said, in order for and it didn't come up over their banks in '54. It would have to come all the way up 100 Acre Cove and then go up 15 feet and then across the street to my house.
Wow,
So I'm not.
How about 38?
How about that?
Hurricane 38?
You weren't around for that, were you?
Close. No.
My wife's grandparents lived through it and talked about, no Tony Petrarca out there, with the long-term forecast. And, they had that thing at the Providence Journal building. They had where the amount, you walk and you look and you think, wow, how quickly it came up.
The Workmen's Compensation Court.
Across the street.
There's a sign. There's a picture, a plaque on the building there.
On Fountain Street.
I noticed, how high it went up. And did you know? You're familiar with Common Fence Point?
Yeah.
Do you know that back before '38, there was an amusement park right there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they even had, and it was so big, it even had a roller coaster.
Wow.
A big roller coaster. Of course.
Did it get wiped out?
Oh yeah, that's why the whole amusement park got wiped out.
Funny story, in 1954, Tom Stevens was working for the Journal, long time. He's since passed. His son Jonathan worked for Link Chafee for a while, was the city planner in Warwick. Anyhow, Tom Stevens, who I worked with, I was at the Journal from '82 to '95, so I started 40 years ago.
Right.
And Tom was a great photographer. Old school, hurricane of '54 comes and it starts flooding. And there's a guy going around in a whaler. And Tom says, I'll give you $100 if you drive me around so I can get better pictures.
Wow.
And $100 back then.
Huge money.
Yeah, but the Journal had pretty huge money back then. So Tom gets all these award-winning pictures. They run in the Journal. It's the best stuff. They're running nationally. Whoever the CFO was, the finance guy, at the end he goes, hey, next time you got to get prior approval for that.
Yeah, right.
Tom's like, we're in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah,
That's
how are you
going to
get prior?
The guy's at home. The guy's at home, like not answering his phone.
If his phone even worked in '54.
Exactly.
You know where I was during the hurricane of '54?
Where?
In Memorial Hospital.
Were you really?
I was. Yeah.
Well, that's at least up high, right?
Yeah. I wasn't because I was 6 years old or something.
Really?
Yeah, I got burnt. I spent 6 months in the hospital when I was a kid. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And I got burnt like the week before Hurricane Carol, or 5 days before Hurricane Carol.
My first big hurricane, I had been with the Journal 3 years, was in 1985, was Gloria. And I was the manager of the Journal back then. They had, regional offices all over the place, and I was in Westerly. And so
Westerly?
I'm driving down 95,
Westerly?
young cub breaking his teeth, Well, the beauty is you never had to worry about the bosses dropping in. They had no idea where the office was. They tried to come visit once, and they wound up in Hartford. It was before GPS.
Yep.
So I was down there with Peter Lord, and then I was the bureau manager in 1985. And my mother, they send me in there, and they sent a whole pile of people to go with us, including Tom Stevens, the photographer. Tom arrived, so I'm driving in on Route 3 through Ashaway,
right.
And everybody's evacuated. And my mother called and said, "Can't you call in sick?" And I'm like, "Mom, this is the best news day of the year."
Exactly.
So Tom got he brought a dozen bagels and a fifth of some type of liquor. Old school.
Old school.
We're sitting there in the bureau. Some guy's blowing across the street. Tom gets his picture. And, of course, he's got to find out who he is, right? So he says, "Hey, come over here." The guy, some homeless guy, he blows in. He rides out the rest of the storm with us.
In the studio.
In the little bureau, eats half the bagels and drinks half the fifth. And he was passed out for
Yeah.
the entire storm. And that the picture that ran in the Journal the next day, it was supposed to come right up Narragansett Bay, and it veered west. And so, boaters, I think it came in maybe mid-September, so you're not quite ready to pull your boat yet.
Right.
But some people did. Put them up on their blocks. The next day, 50 boats in Stonington, like dominoes. The picture was they all blew over.
Yeah.
And the safest place for your boat, and this is why the Navy puts them out.
In the water.
Is
Out
in the water.
in the water.
Let it swim. If
That's
you got a
right.
good mooring or don't put it on land.
Right.
And they found out the hard way. So
Right.
Tom got his picture. I'm not sure how much of the liquor he was able to drink, but it was a good story.
And when you mention the boat in the water, makes me think of right after the tsunami, seven or 8 years ago in Thailand and in Southeast Asia. Well, 1 month after the tsunami.
You were there for that, right?
Well, not for it. I was there 1 month after that, or 2 months after that, 2 months after, to the date.
Wow.
I was there February 25th. It happened New Year, Christmas night.
That video was chilling.
And
you just see it coming.
I interviewed a guy who was there during it, an American. And in fact, he was from Newport, Rhode Island. And the day I got there, and I was going around, it was a mess. Thailand was a mess too, because they lost 6,000 people, I guess. And somebody said, "You want some good reporting, or a guy you want to talk to?" Mentioned the guy, and I said, "Does he speak English?" He says, "Yeah, he sure does. He's from Rhode Island." I went, "What?
Rhode Island?
Rhode Island.
Were you related to him?
Yeah, I would have been surprised enough if it said he was from the United States.
Yeah.
No, he's from Rhode Island.
Wow.
So
Did you make some connection that you were like, you used to date his second cousin 30 years ago?
We didn't get that far. We didn't, but something happened while I was talking with, well, anyway, I went and met with him that evening at a bar, and we agreed to meet the next day at the location where he would take the dinghy out to the boat. He was a captain, hired captain by some wealthy guy that had a big boat, a yacht, and it was moored out in the deep, and he would take the dinghy, and come in for supplies and party, and then he'd go back out to the boat, right? Wow. So he's explaining to me at the shore. He said, "I parked my Toyota right over here." He says, "I walked down onto the floating dock. I get in the skiff, and I went out to the water." He says, "The guy was sleeping in the boat." He says, I get in the water. I go out to the start up the engine because I don't want to. I pulled the mooring, untied the mooring,
right,
and went out to the deeper water before I put up the sails, right? So he's going out to the deeper water, and all of a sudden he said, "There's at least a little ripple underneath him." And all of a sudden, he heard all kinds of noise. So I turned around and looked, and he said, "I saw my truck on the top of a wave, and it went across the street, and it ended up right through the patio window on the third floor of a condo across the street."
But the boat rode it out okay?
Yep. And then, and it was actually two waves. And he says, right after, and by this time, he says, we had the water there, I had been in the water there. The water there is like only about 3 feet deep, and then all of a sudden it takes a serious drop.
Right.
So it was like a shelf. It was like hundreds of feet deep after you hit the shelf. So that was his intent anyway, is take the boat out to the deeper water, because the keel is just about dragging there. So he's taking it out to the deeper water so he can put the sails up. And after the first one, and he's watching all this
Crazy
mayhem,
yeah.
and then it filtered back, and he says it was bare ground in the water. He says
because it all receded.
Yeah, he said I just got into deep enough water where it didn't, dry dock us,
the
right?
boat, yeah.
So all of a sudden, another ripple, a little heavier, a little bigger, but not that much. And he said this one, he said it had to be 70 to 100 feet high. The wave come up, and he saw. Oh, by the way, while the water was out, he says fish are flapping. Shrimp, because there's a lot of shrimp out there, and people are running out and taking their shirts and pulling their shirts up and loading them up with all the stuff, and he's yelling at them, "Get out of the water! Get out of the water! Get out of the water!" And all of a sudden, here comes a second wave and just wiped people
washed
out.
away, yeah.
It went up 11 streets.
My goodness.
In this town was called Pattaya. It
never
went up
forget
11 streets. I went up and talked to an owner of a business. 11 streets up. That's why I know it was 11. And actually, I went up further than that. I talked to a guy at the 11th Street, and he showed me the marking on his wall. It was about 5 feet up on the wall. At 11 streets from the water.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Wow. Yeah, those storms, you never forget them. And we've been very lucky. We really haven't had, Carol was the last big
Major
hurricane.
one.
We had
Hurricane
Gloria.
Bob.
I
Hurricane Bob.
covered Bob, and actually I was just dating my wife in 91, and she had a condo on the north end of Post Road in Warwick, near Patuxent. It was near where the Bank Cafe used to be.
Right, yeah.
And she never lost power. And of course, Barrington, in my neighborhood, you sneeze and the power goes out. I'm on speed dial to the Narragansett electric guy, who's very responsive. I was supposed to tape a show, Joe Paolino's show. He does the Sunday show, and he's been doing it by Zoom. So I'm at my house, and this is on it's a relatively sunny day. We're supposed to tape at 10 in the morning. At 5 minutes of 10, my power goes out. And I'm
Wait a minute, you're talking recently.
This is like a month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I call Ted Cressy, great guy, National Grid. I call him, even before he can say hi, he goes, "We know what it is. It's a pole fire. We're on it. You should have power back in 15 minutes.
Really?
And he hung up. So I was
Wow.
like, yeah. Usually, when I was with the Journal years ago, they used to blame it on squirrels. Oh, big power outage. We have squirrels.
Really?
Yeah. That was code for we don't know what it is. So blame it on
Well,
the
it could
squirrel.
very easily
Nobody
been
ever
squirrels.
Yeah, but nobody ever finds the squirrel. Right?
No,
They've never given us
they're
evidence of the
toasted.
squirrel. Well, you'd think there would be evidence. He gets
Well,
toasted,
yeah,
drops, and then you send out the investigative team.
Right, yeah.
Get the I-team on it. So Bob, it's funny, we've had some hurricane. I never really, and people think I'm nuts when I say this, I was with Channel 6 from 95 to 2008. And I say, I never got a really good hurricane. And they look at me like, what are you talking about, a good hurricane? One where you're out there and reporting and blowing around, did plenty of blizzards, did plenty of other natural disasters, but never got the hurricane.
Hurricane Gloria.
Yeah, 85.
I went down to Bristol, and it used to be that it's now a restaurant. It's changed its name 3 or 4 times, but originally it was a Kelly hamburger.
Oh, Kelly's, where you used to be able to get a bag of clam cakes for $1.
Right.
Back
I
in the
tell
day.
people that, hey, that used to be a Kelly's.
And then you had the other one. The other Kelly's was up right across from where East Providence High School is, in that shopping next to the Burger King. They had 2 Kelly's.
And what was that before it was a Kelly's? I don't know if it was the same
that
building.
predates me, Father Time. I don't.
Father Time.
Yeah.
That was a pink elephant. It was called.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, it was a hop. What do you call them? Girls come out on roller skates and go.
Oh yeah, like the A&W.
Yeah, exactly, like an A&W.
That's a beautiful location, though, right on Bristol Harbor, where Kelly's is, and now it's a restaurant.
Yes.
You wonder, they've had a series of restaurants there, and you always kind of wonder, why don't they do better?
And they got a great parking lot. They got a huge parking lot.
Yeah, they got the sip and dip right there in case you need a coffee.
But when I went down there just get some video and pictures, and there was a slew of boats right across that land. all
That had
across
washed
land.
up from the.
And some of them even ended up in that little water that's right in front of the, what's that, a school across the street?
Yeah, Gutierrez School, and then they have a little pond. It blew over, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And some of them even ended up on the, because there's a little wall there, ended up on the wall. One was teetering on the wall, a big sailboat.
A lot of wind. Yeah, Bristol's got I think it's got the second largest harbor to Newport in the state, if you think about it, in terms of number of boats.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I remember watching during one
Well, they make a lot of boats in Bristol.
Yeah, the Herreshoffs. Pearson used to be in Warren, or maybe it's still there till it's in Pearson. I remember watching a national news piece for a hurricane came into North Carolina, and it blew through Wilmington. And they had a picture of this cabin cruiser. I mean, huge boat, still lashed to the dock. The whole thing went up, like you were talking about, like the school, wound up in this guy's front yard. So
Still attached.
Yeah, so they interviewed this old guy, and they're like, hey, what do you think about that? And he's like, well, I've never seen that before. He said, God tied a hell of a knot, didn't he? Hung onto the dock the whole way over it. So, and the reporter was like, yeah, I guess he did tie him.
Yeah. Well, they're used to hurricanes more than anybody.
Yeah.
Down there.
Yeah, we've ridden out a couple. We go to the Outer Banks for vacation, and it's, fortunately, for years we dodged it where we never had any.
Well, when you're going there in November.
Yeah, well, we go there. We go there in the fall, and that's the time.
you do
that's
go
the
there
time
during
in September. So we had the kids. They were probably 2 years old, maybe, and I wouldn't have evacuated if it just been the adults. But we had the kids, and so we evacuated 100 miles inland. And so Larry Esteppa,
Well, that's really.
Larry Esteppa, who was anchoring at the time, he
Right.
said, hey, you want to do a phone interview with us? And it makes it sound now, we didn't have iPhones or anything, it makes it sound like I would step outside and you hear, like, Jim Hummel's in North Carolina. I didn't tell him I was 100 miles
I was just
from
going
the
to say
store.
that. You didn't say that. You couldn't have said that to him.
No,
You would have hung up on you.
No. So then the producers all wanted me. So 6 a.m., noon, 6 o'clock, and 11. And we're supposed to be on vacation. I had a couple of drinks one night, fell asleep. At 10 of 11, Wendy woke me up and said, hey, don't you have to do a live hit at 11? I was like, yeah. So I looked outside, still raining. Larry, it's really coming down
it's
out
bad,
here.
it's
Yeah,
bad.
it sounded like I was
Did he ask you how it was at the shoreline? Or did he-
I kind of fudged that.
Did you?
So how's it look down there? Oh, the rain's coming in sheets.
I can't even see.
Can't see across the street.
Can't see it.
Yeah.
And when I tell people all the time about weather versus New England versus other parts of the country, we have the least big events of any part of the country, I think.
Yeah. At least the hurricanes are predictable. I mean, you see those horrible tornadoes that they had.
Oh,
in
man, there's 10
Kentucky.
minutes. They get 10 minutes.
And there it goes. The kids, when they were in North Carolina, they had their first tornado warning, and all the sirens start going off. It's
Right.
it's a little unnerving. Right. And so my kids were like, what do we do? And I said, well, what's the deal? She says, most of the other kids seem kind of nonplussed, like they'd gone through this before. Right. And I have a friend who works at the university, and I said, well, so how do you deal with this? She says, it's a good time to catch up with everybody you haven't seen in 6 months down in the basement. Everybody goes down to the basement who they haven't seen.
Wow.
And they say hi. But our producer for Lively Experiment is from Kentucky. She came here.
Well, that's where you get the hurricane, not the Carolinas.
No, the tornadoes.
Tornadoes.
Tornadoes. Fortunately, her hometown, she's from Bowling Green, where Western Kentucky University is. And she said her parents lost 2 huge trees. I mean, it'd be like some mammoth tree here just going down. And she said, fortunately, they were okay, but the town was just really, I mean, it's so sudden. They found,
Right.
Did you see the national news piece? They found a picture, like a wedding picture, 100 miles away. It just,
Well, they were
like the
saying
Wizard of
that
Oz.
big the big tornado that hit there. First of all, they usually stay on the ground 10 minutes or so.
Right.
And they usually go a few miles. That thing went, I don't know, 100 miles or something.
I think it was a 200-mile swath through Kentucky and Ohio.
That's unbelievable.
Crazy.
And they said stuff was flying up to 36,000 feet in the air.
Yeah, you're in a plane and you're like, what's all this debris up here?
Didn't they find some baby was in the
car
seat?
in a bathtub, yeah.
Yeah.
Very fortunate. Was not injured. So, yeah, fortunately we don't have that. Most of our weather events are predictable.
And minor.
Yeah.
We don't have mudslides. We don't have
earthquakes. Yep. Forest fires.
Right. Dust bowls,
Yeah.
We don't have any of that stuff. So people that complain about Rhode Island and New England,
I think we have it pretty good.
we got it pretty good. Although we do have Mount Washington, the coldest temperature and the windiest.
Yeah, I love that. It's like it always says it's 80 degrees here, and then it's like 45 on top of Mount Washington.
I've been on
Have you
top
been
of
up there?
like that. Oh yeah, several times.
What's the view like?
Spectacular. I mean, you can see like 4 states, I guess, 4 or 5 states from up there.
Just don't break down.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing of it is that the temperature is so extreme, and the wind is so extreme up there.
Yeah.
And I do understand why, because you've flown, obviously, you've flown a lot, especially if you fly international. They fly a little higher, and you're over the water, and you fly over countries that are near the Arctic Circle, or at least I have. And the outside temperature outside that plane, I've seen it as low as 62 below zero outside the plane.
Have you ever thought about when they say, in the case of emergency, use seat cushion as flotation device?
Oh, please.
My feeling is if it comes to that,
Party's over anyway.
It's it. That's it. And
Party
you're going to be
is
hanging
over.
on. We flew to Iceland a couple of years ago, and I thought,
Yep.
I'm going to be hanging onto a cushion in the middle of the Atlantic,
Right,
and it's going to take...
You only got to last 10 minutes in the water anyway.
Exactly.
Right?
We wound up going, my wife and I and my college roommate, who we're good friends with, and his wife, we took our first post-pandemic trip in September. And we went to Arizona and New Mexico.
Oh,
I went
nice.
to Iceland a couple of years ago for a wedding anniversary.
Oh,
We
okay.
went to Iceland actually on the
I've
way
been
to
there.
Amsterdam.
I've gone there, yes.
Which is cool. But we started out in Albuquerque and then we went to Santa Fe, and it was funny. Santa Fe's up a little bit, and then we went up. We drove 45 minutes into this national park, and we're taking a walk, and I exercise pretty regularly, but I was starting to huff and
Right,
puff,
right.
and I was a little embarrassed.
it's a
Well, then I
little
looked
thin.
around, and everybody else was like, "Can we stop?" The elevation.
A little thin.
We were 10,000 feet up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because if you go to have you ever been to Santa Fe and Albuquerque? So Albuquerque's about 5,000
Albuquerque,
feet.
I've always wanted to go to the balloon
Festival. Santa Fe is about 7,200 feet.
Right.
So it's really up there. And then we went another
Well, Santa Fe's on
2,500
Route
feet.
10, right?
I think it is
Because
Route 10.
I've been there then. I've
Because
been to
then we
Santa Fe.
drove all the way, we took one
Take
long
you
day.
all the
we
way to
drove
California.
We went to the canyon. And we went
Oh,
to the
yeah.
Grand Canyon.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we went south to Sedona and spent the last
Been to
2 days
Sedona,
in
too.
Phoenix, where, I'm sure Arizona's great, but this was the second week of September, and Scottsdale was 106 degrees.
Exactly.
I'm like, you can have that.
I saw temperature there this summer, 122 in Phoenix.
Yeah, it's a dry heat.
Oh, yeah, okay.
No problem.
Okay. Put your head in an oven.
Crazy.
Tell me what dry heat does
Some
for you.
people like it.
Yeah. And then you can't go out. And not only is it so, you and I with
Can you imagine
skin,
the SPF 150?
Oh my God!
What do you think?
We'd be cooked in 20 minutes. It'd
Yeah,
be all over.
exactly.
Turn us over. The party's over.
Hey, so there's good news in all of this. My son is studying to become a physical therapist.
Oh,
And I
good.
think you could probably use his
Oh,
services,
I could use
right?
him now. Is he around? Is he available?
He's about 6 months away from taking his board. So
Really?
we'll slot you in for an appointment after he
yeah,
graduates.
yeah. Where's he going to practice?
To be determined. You know what he's actually thinking about doing? He has some student debt. He has some graduate college debt, and so he's thinking.
So
of
he's
doing,
he's in the graduate course right now.
It's a 3-year doctorate, so he's
Oh,
like in his
wow.
7th year. So
Wow.
physical therapy used to be a master's degree, and then about 15 years ago they changed it to a doctorate. So you're a DPT, you're a doctor of physical therapy.
Right.
And I think the one advantage, other than a lot more school, I think the one advantage is if you want to open up your own practice, if you want to have Doctors Hummel and Venturini,
Right.
we can open our own practice as opposed to now you have to go to your GP and he refers you.
Correct.
So now somebody could walk in the door and say, okay, Dr. Hummel, and he writes the script and he's fine with the
Right.
insurance company. But I think what he's going to do, he might do travel PT.
Ooh.
Like the nurses?
Yeah.
And so you make obscene amounts of money.
Yep. Plus you get to see the
You
world.
get to travel all over the place. They put you up. And he might do that for a year and pay down his loans and then decide where he wants to go.
Well, the other advantage of that is he can check out where he wants to go.
Exactly. You get to see a
He
lot
can
of
figure
different
it out.
parts of the country.
Hey, well,
So-
at least his youth is not being wasted.
Well,
Like-
youth is wasted on the young, I hear that.
That's what
Is that
they
true?
always say, right?
Yeah,
But
the old guys like us say that. The young people never think that.
No, they never think that.
No wisdom. How much wisdom do you think we have in this set right here? My son goes, yeah, wisdom just translates
Well, like
into
the golden
old
years.
guys,
Hey,
right?
like the golden years, you know.
Yeah. It is hard for me to believe. Now, you've been doing this almost 30 years. This is my 40th year
That's
in the market,
unbelievable.
Rhode Island. I came, I was coming for, I wasn't coming to Rhode Island at all.
Now, wait, where are you originally from?
Born in the Midwest, but my
Where?
family,
Where?
LaGrange, Illinois. It's about an hour outside of Chicago.
Okay.
My family moved here. My dad came to take a job in 1965 when I was 5 in Rhode Island. So I grew up kindergarten through ninth grade, Rhode Island. We moved north to outside of Worcester, which is where I went to high school. And then I went to college in North Carolina with the blizzard of '78 was my senior year in college. Talk about weather events. We got 47 inches in Grafton, Massachusetts.
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, you know how it was little pockets of 36 here. And, so I looked south. And so I was looking at North Carolina, Virginia, a couple of schools down there. And I wanted to stay. I had an internship here, but I was next in line for a job in Atlanta, Dallas, and St. Pete. And then the economy froze. You remember 1982. It was almost like 2008. Yeah. So the Journal offered me a job, and I thought, okay, I'll come back and do it for a couple of years. And now it's funny. I remember my father saying they offered me the job, and he said, "Take the job." It's like the father's view.
Right. Yeah.
Dad, I'm going to play the field. Take the job, because getting a job with the Journal right out of college was unheard of. But I had my eye on, I want to go to a warmer climate. I want to go to a bigger market.
Yeah.
And so I figured I'd stay here 3 years. Well, that 3 turned into 13 at the Journal. And you remember I did my switch and went over to television. And that was another 13 years.
Well, folks, if you don't know, you originally started with the Journal, then you did some kind of a
I did a switch with a reporter at Channel 6, but not with the intention of going to Channel 6. My thought was, excuse me, I had met with the head of the broadcast division for the Journal at that point.
Right.
And they had great affiliates all over the country. Portland, Seattle, Lexington, Kentucky. The only place I wasn't going to go was Boise, Idaho.
Why not? Right now, that's one of the hottest markets in the country.
How's the sailing out there?
Yeah, I know it.
Not so good.
Yeah.
So
how's the deep sea fishing?
Yeah, not so good. So how are the potatoes? So I wound up talking to him, and he said to me, you seem like a nice guy. You seem like a great reporter. I have no idea how you would do on tape, which is a lot, So I came out of there. I told people, I said, I felt like a rabbi interviewing to become a priest. We were kind of in the same thing, but we weren't. So he basically said, I need to see you on tape.
And by the way, the Journal was big time at the time.
Journal was huge.
Had the Bulletin, at the Journal.
They had, and at that point in '95, when I ultimately made the switch, everybody said, "You're going to television? You could retire at the Journal." And I said, "You know why I'm going to television? Because I don't want to retire at the Journal." Well, now we know what's happened since, but that was before the internet took off, and it was still privately held. And the Journal made, it was really before the internet ate into classified ads and all that. So I was fortunate to be there during the glory years, but I really only had the intention of staying here for about 3 years. Well, then we had the kids, and my first contract was up when I was 40. And, you go to a larger market, you make a lot of money, but they own you. They absolutely, they don't care about your family life. Your kids are sick, your wife, whatever. They don't want to
hear it. You got to work on holidays. You got to do all kinds of stuff you normally would be able to get away with.
They used to. I knew Boston reporters who would be on the road for a week or 10 days, never see their kids. So I just sort of decided to stay here. So that all of a sudden was another 13 years, and then I left Channel 6 because they had some issues there. But I'm fortunate enough to be doing what I do now. We marked 12 years on the Hummel Report in October.
All right, explain that to us. So people that don't know.
For people who don't know, I run a nonprofit journalistic outfit. We're supported by, it's a nonprofit, so we're supported by donations, some corporate, some foundations, and people who just want to see good journalistic, journalism, investigative journalism. And so our wheelhouse is what I did at Channel 6. You paid for it, which is government waste and corruption. So it's kind of come full circle because I have a nice partnership with WPRO. They talk about my stories when, the Post feel like.
And you go on there.
And I fill in. Been moderating Lively Experiment, the public affairs show on PBS, Rhode Island PBS. And 4 years ago, the Journal approached me about having my stuff run in the Journal.
Cut it out.
Yeah, so it's nice. So really, we have among them, it's full circle because Alan Rosenberg, who I had known going back to my internship 40 years ago, he said, look, we could use the content, we'll pay you for it, and you can use the extra eyeball. So it really was, a win-win.
Win-win, yeah.
So
both ways.
So 40 years goes by. Here we are.
Wow.
Yeah. I left Channel 6 when my kids were going into 6th grade, and Operation Clean Government, you'll appreciate this knowing that when your son was that age, Operation Clean Government gave me the Golden Broom Award for sweeping up corruption.
Yeah.
And so I put it off in the corner, and my daughter, who didn't really, you don't tell kids at that point, I was unemployed, didn't have any money coming in. the economy totally fell apart in 2008.
Yep.
So
Oh, God,
I was
yeah.
unemployed for about a year. My wife's got a good job, but it wasn't going to carry us
What
forever.
does she do?
She's the research director for the radiology department at Rhode Island Hospital. So and has been at Rhode Island almost as long as I've been. She came in '83. So
And
we're
that's
kind
the
of
sector to be in because you're never without a job.
yeah. So she's been there a long time. But my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, maybe you can get a job as a janitor at our school." I was
Oh,
like,
my God.
Bring my golden broom with me.
Oh, my God.
So-
Wow.
But-
Wow.
So it worked out. So we were able to form it. I have editorial control over what I want to do.
Right.
I pick and choose the stories that I want to do. And I'm lucky because most of the people I went to school with for journalism, nobody's in the business anymore, reporting. They've gone to PR, they've gone to communications, some have worked for politicians, some have gotten out altogether. So to be able to do what I do and love what I do 40 years later, I am very blessed.
Wow. Well, that's great. That's great. What's your most recent story? What have you done? What's going on?
I did a story right before Christmas on for anybody who has an Easy Pass.
Yes.
Some people, more than you would think, statistically it's a very small amount, but I got charged.
Right.
And
For a truck.
For a truck. Right. I'm going over the Washington Bridge, and I looked at my bill and I thought, now we used
Wait a
to.
minute, I don't ever get a bill from them.
You have to set up. Well, do you use it?
Yeah, I have two. I had two of them.
Yeah, but have you been on roads where they would charge you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Newport Bridge or what you got to get a statement. So the way I have it is you have a credit card on file, and when it dips below a certain amount, they recharge it.
Yeah. Well, I just put a bunch of money.
But they should send you a statement every month.
Never have.
That say, well, you got to talk to them about that and see whether you're getting charged improperly. You might be. So the point of the story was I was going to Lively Experiment one day, driving over from the East Bay. They charged me $9.50 each way. So
What's the normal charge? 88 cents or 86 cents? Or
you
something?
don't get charged at all in a car. It's my passenger vehicle.
Wait a minute. Of course.
So the truck tolls are only supposed to be for trucks.
I thought you were going over the bridge.
Newport
Not
Bridge.
the bridge.
No.
Oh, okay.
And so that was the whole point of the story.
that
Why?
made it
How
obvious.
can they
Yeah, why you
confuse
charge
me?
it?
And they said, well, you might have gone over at the same time, and they didn't see
the truck's
trucks.
this big and the car's this big.
Whatever. So they said,
Did they charge the truck too?
no, the truck got away. They charged me and not the truck. But so what happened was we did an initial article for the Journal. It's in the front page of the Sunday Journal. Well, people start checking their bills.
Right.
And they're like, hey, I got charged. Or I got charged $3.50 last summer, but it was such a pain to try to get a hold of somebody.
Right.
I'm going to give up. So Peter Alvini, the DOT director, was always very responsive. He told me it was 1,800 people out of 19 million transactions.
Wow.
But we know it's a lot more now because a lot of people never checked.
Right, like me. I don't know.
Well, so when you get your statement, when we used to drive to North Carolina a lot, it was, Maryland. It's like $4, $8, $4,
Right.
The George Washington Bridge, the Delaware Memorial Bridge, all of that. But I hadn't driven, my daughter lives in New York City, we hadn't driven down there for a year. So
What's the Washington Bridge now? 18
George
bucks or
Washington
something?
Bridge?
Yeah.
Oh, it's at least $15, $18.
Oh, yeah, I think it's 18 bucks.
Just westbound, but it's
Right.
It's not cheap. So I looked at my bill and I thought, the only time we really would get charged is going to Logan, going to the Ted Williams Tunnel.
Right.
And so I looked and it said the little code said SWB or SRB, Seekonk River Bridge.
What?
That's kind of odd.
Seekonk
So I
River
called,
Bridge.
and the times lined up. I was going to Lively. I was coming back a couple hours later, and they said and I had gotten emails from people.
That's on 195.
195, but they're all over, Bob. There are 13 locations in the state. So if you have an Easy Pass now and you haven't checked your bill, go check it.
Wow. I'm going to request a bill.
Request them, because what they'll do is if you have any activity, now the other problem is you get your bill about 6 weeks after the transactions.
Right.
So you're getting your bill at the end of November for transactions
And
that
you
are
gotta-
in
you
late
gotta try to-
September,
Yeah, what did I
early
do? Where was
October,
I?
where was I, and all of that. And you know how it is. You drive down to North Carolina and back, that's like $60, $70 worth of tolls. So you're not checking every line item, but what made it stand out was that we hadn't traveled anywhere, and they were charging me.
Right. Right, yeah.
So we're doing stuff like that. I did a lot of reporting on Block Island last year. They had
About what?
Champlin's Marina has this 2-decade-old lawsuit over expanding the marina out there, and there were some shenanigans going on with the legal process. So the beauty of what I'm doing now is, what reporter or what outlet is going to go to Block Island in the middle of the winter, which
Right.
is when we went.
Oh my God!
January,
How'd
February.
you get over there?
Well, we took the ferry, and I told my photographer, I said, we got to
How
try
about
to
a
do
plane?
these things. We got to try to do this in July. I mean, what are
Yeah.
we doing here in January?
By boat?
Huh? Yeah, but it was actually a pretty mild day.
Really?
We were fortunate. But so who's going to do that? And then the beauty of what I have is, not only do I have the journal to be able to write fairly, 2,500, 3,000 word piece,
Right.
Video, do 8, 9, 10-minute videos. So really, you're not going to see that on TV.
Right.
And who else is going to be able to go out there and report in depth like we do,
Yep.
and then have a vehicle to be able to report it.
So you're ahead of you're ahead of your time, because now was it Mansfield, that woman that's got a show now that
Who's
she
that?
does? I can't think right. Is it Mansfield? Something Mansfield?
Nationally or locally?
Nationally,
Yeah, Ashley Banfield.
maybe that's who it is. Yeah.
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 What she
They
used to be?
advertise on. What? Tell me. She used to be.
She
where?
used to be a correspondent. Remember, she had the funny glasses. She used to be with NBC, and she covered the Persian Gulf War.
Okay.
So she was a big star, kind of flamed out, and now she's with this outfit called News Nation. It's
Right.
the old WGN, which is based out of Chicago.
Oh,
And then now they have not been really successful. They have not made inroads. They have billed themselves as the absolutely middle of the road.
Right.
Fox,
Right.
MSNBC,
And we're
CNN.
here.
We're right here.
We'll just tell you the news as it is, and
Right.
you decide.
And I'm not convinced, they haven't really caught on.
Right.
But they've hired her, and Dan Abrams is another guy who was
Right.
the legal correspondent for all those years. Channel 12 cross promotes it because they're owned by the same company. So if
they
you watch
are.
Channel 12 News at 6
They
o'clock,
they
they'll
advertise
say,
for it.
hey, coming up tonight on Banfield.
Right.
It's basically a talking head show.
Well, and the other one, Channel 10's got one too. NBC has one.
Do they?
They got a woman that comes on. Obviously, I haven't watched it, but
Can I tell you, I just don't watch a lot of TV.
Yeah.
It was just kind of funny for a TV guy, but I just don't
well,
have
when
a
I
lot of
tell
time.
people I don't watch my show, they go, "Why do you not watch your show?"
You really don't want to see yourself.
I'm too
That's
critical.
probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be going,
Yeah, look at that's
look.
what
I like you not wearing a tie anymore. You've kind of loosened up.
well, I had
You
to
always
because
used
I
to
had
have
a
a tie.
My tie was crooked last show, and nobody told me. Yeah,
Yeah.
So I'll go without a tie.
My wife, you can't believe how many times I would get called out of bed at 5 in the morning, because they needed people at Channel 6 to go cover a fire. And I remember going out the door once, literally at 5 o'clock. We're on the air at 6 somewhere, and I had, back in the days of leather jackets, right? Which has been quite a few years.
Wait, I still wear a leather jacket.
You're very cool. My jacket was kind of
Right, the
schlumped,
lapel was
right?
Yep.
And my wife watches the live shot, and she's like, does nobody see this? And then by the second time it happened, she was convinced, like, it must be an all-male crew. Nobody's paying attention about
Right.
this. You would have noticed that, right?
Right.
And so she called the control room. She said, does nobody see? So they're like, yeah, it's Hummel's wife.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it depends on who's on the crew. The live truck operator, the photographer, the director in the control room, all men not paying attention.
Yeah, but I would pay attention if I was the
TV
director.
people, you got to take care of your people in the
Exactly.
field. See, I've got photographers. Mike Rossi has been my longtime photographer for the Hummel Report.
Right.
He was the chief photographer at Channel 6. He pays attention. Hey, your hair's out of place, or
Right.
because if
Your collar's turned down, or, or
and
if
it's
you're wearing a
but
tie,
it's
the tie's off to the
distracting,
side.
Because people would say when I was in television, oh, why do you have hairspray and why do you do it? If your hair's blowing around in a storm, nobody's listening to what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right? Or if your
exactly.
tie is like this.
When's he going to notice it? When's he going to fix that tie?
All these guys, all these young reporters got to think I'm like angry old man shaking his fist at the moon. I will tweet them sometimes like, dude, if you're going to wear a tie, I call them out by name. If you're going to wear a tie, straighten it up or ditch the tie. And they're all like,
Right.
oh, thanks, old man. So,
And you see some of these guys, they don't know how to make a Windsor knot.
no, that's a lost art.
That's terrible.
You got to have that really sharp looking dimple. You know who has a really sharp looking dimple all the time?
Who's that?
Gene Felicenti.
Oh, yeah.
His ties look good. Was he wearing a tie when he came on the show?
I don't remember. Was he?
No.
No?
No. Ties are, I have, the funny part is when I left Channel 6, they gave me a clothing allotment every year, right? I had 24 suits, probably 200 ties, and maybe 75 shirts. Because they wanted you to make sure you're updated all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember, of course, my kids are in 6th or 7th grade, and I was filling in a lot on the radio then. And Cam, my son, said, Dad, you're going to be the best dressed guy on radio. And I said, it doesn't take much, Cam, believe me. Why do you think a lot of these guys are on radio?
A face for radio.
I said that once. I was filling in for DePietro over at WHJJ, and I don't know what possessed me, but that phrase came out of my mouth and said, yeah, this guy's got a face for radio. And then I looked around, and I was like, what did I just say? And the producer looked at me like, come on now.
Yeah, but it's kind of true.
It is.
For the most part.
What kills me is, like, at WPRO, they had this push about 10 years ago to put in studio cameras, and they had this whole digital thing you could watch online, and not a lot of people did, but some people did. Right. And I thought, the beauty of radio is like Anchor in the weekends at Channel 6.
Yeah, you can go in your shorts on.
You could be in your pajamas. Yeah. You put on a nice, whatever. And so when I'm in public, I want to be dressed up, but I was in filling in on Monday. I had a sweater, a hat. I didn't take a shower before I went because I was going to be swimming that afternoon. And I thought somebody texted me and said, hey, how come they don't have the studio cam? I'm like, that's the last thing we want. Radio is like one bastion of solitude that you don't have to worry about how you look. Yeah. But they see all the guys, like the Boston sports stations all have video, like Nesson runs one of them or whatever.
A video cam.
Yeah, the video cam. It's not.
Speaking of DePietro, have you seen him?
I haven't seen him much. Have you had him on the show?
Not since he's been up in Woonsocket.
Yeah.
Well, he's actually not up there. He's doing it.
Well, like a lot of us are doing it from home. They had, when I was filling in on WPRO, I mean, you were rightly upset not to be doing the show, but in the fill-in host, or the host and the fill-in host were not in that building at WPRO for at least a year. So what they do is, well, you know the business. They have Comrex boxes. They cost $4,000 or $5,000.
Right.
It's an internet connection. You put your headphones in. Used to set up a Google Doc to see who the callers were. So the producer at the station who was there, you'd be reading it like you'd read at the studio.
Right.
And this box made it sound like you were in the studio.
Right.
And that's what they all use. So, so a lot of people knew that the hosts were there, but it wasn't like the sound quality like you were talking through a tin can.
Right. And they don't give it away, or they end up giving it away, even by accident. They'll say something about where they are. Matt Allen lives in Connecticut.
His kid, or you can hear his kid, like, saying something in the background. Right. Years ago, there was a big controversy in Boston. There was a guy named Gary LaPierre.
I remember.
Remember him? Yes, WBZ Radio, which was, the best country.
I listen to WBZ today.
Did you really?
I do now, yeah.
I used to listen, when I went to school in North Carolina, at night after dark.
Yep.
You could pick them up.
BZ
700 miles away. And when I was a little homesick, I listened to Johnny Most calling the games,
yeah.
right? And so Gary LaPierre, I think it was Gary LaPierre, and I'm sorry if it's not, I trust Boston's not watching the show. There was a big controversy that they found out he had one of these Comrex boxes. He was doing his show from Fort Lauderdale.
No way.
In the dead of winter. And what really pissed people off was they went, it is really cold out there today, Boston. It is 3 below. And he was sitting there with a drink and his feet up, and he was in his shorts. And the Globe did a huge piece on this.
Wow.
And I don't know if he was disciplined or not, but a lot of people thought that was radio fraud.
Yeah.
I mean, now, in the days of Rush Limbaugh did all of his shows from Florida, but it made it that I think he would have been okay if he didn't.
He's
make
not
it
as
sound
miserable
like,
as we are.
Like I'm out there with you on the Mass Pike trying to, inch my way home. So.
Yeah. Now I listen not every night, but and only in the car. I listen to WBZ and
Dan Ray.
Dan Ray.
Nighttime show.
He was scheduled to come on my show.
Was he really?
Just before just after the pandemic. He was scheduled to. Pandemic hit us, in February?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was scheduled that end of that month.
He's made a nice transition for those who haven't watched Boston TV. And I ran into him a lot because Boston Providence, we'd be covering something in, Fall River. We'd go to Boston. Ray was old school, and you know his son was with the Paw Sox for a while.
I've had him on the show.
Dan Ray was
He's
old
still
school.
with the Paw Sox, I
think he is.
believe.
Yeah. And I heard that just Dan, it was a nice transition for him. And Boston, I'm not sure you'd be able to do that time slot here in Providence. Everybody goes to bed way earlier than they do in Boston.
Yeah,
but
he's
he
got a long
does
slot.
9. Isn't he like 9 to midnight or
No,
8
he's
to,
no, he's eight. He's eight. I think he's eight.
But it's nighttime. It's not like 6 to 9.
Right.
But he thrives. And every time I've heard him, he gets a lot of calls.
he gets
and-
calls from all over
Well,
the
and
place.
it's the
too.
institutional knowledge that he has.
Right.
I mean, it's like
He's a
when I-
lawyer. He's
when I-
also an attorney.
Is he a
Yes,
lawyer?
he is,
Oh, I
yeah.
didn't know that. When I do talk radio at PRO, it's drawing. You know, I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I remember what Governor DePrete did in 1984.
Same
And
here.
so there's a lot of stuff that just there's only so much preparation you can do. You want to be up on the topics of the day, but when you have to dig deep back, there's not a lot of guys who have been in the market that long. So Dan's great. You got to get him back. Got to get him to come.
Well, he wants to do a Zoom call now.
No. Zoom. So we did Lively Experiment for a year on Zoom, and it shaved about 10 years off of my life.
Really?
It was, look, the technology's great
Yep.
because it allows us to be able to continue to do the show. But it is, everybody out there has probably done a Zoom call at one point, and if you have to do it for work, it was so stilted. We'd have me and 3 panelists. Bob, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
Susan, Tom, and there wasn't that, in Lively, we start going at it.
Right,
So you get
right.
Joe Trillo on there, and we had Joe Trillo and Wendy Schiller on once, and man, it was just like the match and let them go. And you couldn't do
Wendy
that
Schiller
on
from
Brown University.
Brown University,
the chair of
PR, the PR
she's
department.
the political science chairman. Yeah.
PS.
Yeah, PS. So I mean, Zoom cut both ways. It allowed us to do the show, but that first show, we went back to the studio it was just about a year. We did 51 weeks of shows on Zoom. And I was thinking we had to postpone last week. We had the big storm on Friday. And I do one show a year with legislators. Otherwise, I don't have sitting legislators at all because we want to talk about them, not with them, right?
Right.
And PBS back in the day when they were a state operation, they kind of had to bring the legislators on to kind of
Yep.
grease the finance chairman. So we don't do that anymore. And the timing of the storm couldn't be worse. We tape at 8:30 on a Friday morning. And so we decided to put it off for a week. And so they're coming in this week, and we'll have it on, for next week in January. But Zoom now would allow us with enough advance notice. Zoom would allow us to
Right.
just do it from our homes during the snowstorm.
Oh.
Except me, because when you sneeze, the power goes out in my neighborhood.
I got a call last week from a friend of mine who I didn't know when this occurred. He says, I found something going through my folders and my file cabinets, whatever, and he says, I think it'll be of interest to you. Talking about the Providence Journal.
Oh my goodness. Wow. What's the date? July 1st, 2001.
Yep. 2 months and a week before 9/11.
Think of that. Wow. Do you know who wrote the article?
Yeah, Glenn. Glenn, what's his name? It begins with O, I think.
Him.
Yeah.
I'll look
You're
at
a
that.
journal guy. You were there at the time.
Well, no, I was at Channel 6. I left in 19...
Oh, that's right. What am I
I
saying?
left in 1995. They did a cover story on me, and it's amazing how many people... I mean, back in the day, the Journal owned the state, right?
Exactly.
Look at me on live TV going through... oh, there you are.
A centerfold.
Isn't that nice?
I'm a centerfold.
A cover story. There we go. Can we get that up?
Where are you?
How's that?
Here's Bob. What's
Isn't
it
that nice?
say?
I like that. Back when the Journal...
See what it says at the bottom?
Here's Bob. Venturini is the Johnny Carson of public access.
The greatest compliment I've ever received.
There you go. I love how you brush your teeth before every show. That's really
Of
nice.
course.
You still have teeth?
Yeah, a few. But when you said that earlier about going out and doing something, and don't take a shower because you're going to get dirty anyway.
Right.
And I used to say to people, well, then why do you take a... Some people say to me, oh, I'm going to go work on the car. I'm going to get greasy anyway. Why take a shower? I said, I will not even answer my door without taking a shower.
Really?
Yeah.
My wife's like that. She gets up and she'll take I mean, she walks the dog. Like, she goes out. Someday she has to be in for 6:30.
Right.
She'll walk 4 miles. with the dog. She'll leave at like 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning. The Barrington cops all know her. It's like they think, because they have sometimes kids breaking into cars and stuff. It's like, oh, there's the crazy one, the woman with the dog. And sometimes she'll take a shower before she walks. And I'm like,
what I do.
What are you doing?
And then I would take a shower after I walk the dog.
Yeah, it's a lot of showers. You know who used to take a lot of showers? Remember Rajon Rondo, who played for the Celtics? He was on that team with Paul Pierce and Ray Allen. He showered 4 times a day. What a freak show.
In the summertime, like that, I'll shower 3 times a day in the summer. And change 3 sets of clothes.
That's a lot of laundry. Sean Daly used to tell me, Sean, who of course worked with me at Channel 6, and then he was at Channel 12.
He was on the show too, by the way.
You've had them all. The only thing I'm really upset about is I still have not made the Open after all these years.
I don't have anybody working anymore. I need a crew.
That's going to be my caveat. I'm not coming back until you put me in the
Well, I put a thing on this Craigslist to get crew members.
Couldn't get them?
No, somehow it gets knocked down every time. Within an hour, somebody...
It's like a big media conspiracy.
Somebody knocks it out. I guess if somebody complains, they take it out. Oh. So I don't know what's happening, and I don't know how to get a hold of it.
It's a big conspiracy against Bob Ventura.
It's got to be. But I can't get it the ad up there. Like you...
Well, you would think you could say, hey, if you're watching...
If you're watching, you want to be
public
part
access
of the
isn't going to knock you out. Daly started his career in New Orleans. Now, can you imagine New Orleans May through September? He said he'd have to bring 3 shirts. Because if you wanted to look fresh for the live shot at 5 o'clock, can you imagine?
They'd have to have a shower in the
live
studio.
truck. Yeah,
they'd have to have a shower.
Yeah, and you're out running, and back then we used to chase a lot more people than I do now. There was a lot of huffing and puffing, and the equipment was, it's not just these small cameras
bigger.
Now. You had the 3/4.
Right. Well, that was 2 pieces.
3/4, and then the deck on the other side. Everybody had back surgery. My guy Mike Rossi.
And the decks were heavy.
Brutal. Yeah. I would always carry the tripod for the photographer because I thought, and you'd see all these other reporters, they just like let the guy cover everything. And I said, don't you know that like 75% of this story is video? Right. So wouldn't you want to take care of your photographer? Right. All these reporters who were just like, they walk in the port, it's like the guy carrying the luggage.
Well, they're too cool, Or they send a reporter out without a cameraman.
Yeah, well, that's the thing now. These geniuses in corporate headquarters say, oh, well, to save money, we can have all the reporters shoot their own video and do their own live shots. And
so now you got
these 24-year-old women out at night doing, it's not, or men, it's not a good look.
Right. By themselves, nobody with them. Exactly. Well, somebody was killed a few months ago in, I don't know, San Francisco. Yeah.
I didn't
know
the
that. Cameraman. The cameraman was killed, Yeah, they tried to steal the damn camera. They had it set up on a tripod, waiting for the shot. You know how it goes. And I guess nobody was standing right at the camera, so somebody come over and grabbed the camera. He fought with him, and then he ended up getting killed.
You see video of reporters doing live shots out on the highways, and I did that many times, and you wonder, how did somebody, there could be some drunk guy or some distracted guy that runs into you. You're not paying it.
How many state police cars have been wiped out in the last year?
Just bad news. I did a story, I was telling my kids this, because they were too young to remember. Remember when JFK Jr.'s plane went down?
I do.
We set up a live truck, the worst live truck Channel 6 ever had. It spewed diesel, and it was like a nuclear hazard driving around.
Yep.
We parked across the street from a guy in Hyannis who, one, hated the Kennedys to begin with and hated the media even worse.
Yep.
And we're on a public street, but all the diesel fumes are blowing into his yard. So we're there about 7, 8 o'clock, and I'm editing. In the photographer's editing, and I kind of see this guy coming over, approaching, and he has something behind his back.
No.
So I get out, and he's going to the camera. He's going to kick
Baseball
the camera
bat?
over. He has a bucket of water.
And
I took one for the team. I intercepted him, and he dumped it on my head.
Really?
And so then I'm totally soaked, and I had a live shot to do in about an hour. And I had people back home go, Jim looks a little wet.
Well, guess what, Jim? We're going to leave it there. You just
did
it now. I'm told to wrap it up.
It should be 2 hours with Bob.
That's why I only booked you.
An hour with Hummel.
Hummel and Bob.
There you go.
An hour with Jim and Bob.